Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I hope that you're well. It's Rabbi Akiva Males, and today is Wednesday. It is the 29th of November. We're getting ready for Parshas Vayishlach, and I want to share with you a few Divrei Torah that hopefully will make the Parsha more meaningful for you. So let's start off at the very, very beginning. The very beginning, just to remember the storyline, we find Yaakov Avinu and his wives and children. They're starting their journey back to Israel. Then it's still the land of Canaan, to go reunite with the family, with his parents, with Yitzchak and Rivka. And he's very nervous that he's going to encounter his brother Esav. Esav has been plotting his demise for years now, and he's very nervous about facing Esav. So he's taking all sorts of precautions. And at the beginning of the Parsha, we read about those precautions. We read about the various gifts that he sends over to Esav to try to flatter him and to try to get on his good side. We read about the nice messaging that he's sending. He's taking, and he's also praying. He's davening to Hashem as well. So he's covering all of his bases for this encounter with Esav that he's very nervous about. Let's see right at the beginning of the Parsha. The Parsha begins, it's in Perek Lamed Beis, that's chapter 32. The pasuk begins, Vayishlach Yaakov malachim lefanav. He sent angels or messengers. There's a dispute if they were real angels or just messengers. El Esav achiv, he sends them towards his brother Esav. Arza Seir, stay Edom, the land of Seir, the fields of Edom. Hey, Vayitzavo Sam Lemor, and he gives them the following instructions. Ko samrun la'adoni Esav. This is what you're supposed to say to my master Esav. Ko amar avdecha Yaakov. So says your servant Yaakov. So again, you see in the messaging here, he's telling these agents to refer to Yaakov when they're speaking to Esav as his servant. In other words, he's already showing that he's machnia, he's making himself subservient to Esav. Again, this is a way of showing Esav respect. In Lavan Garti, I have been dwelling with Uncle Lavan all these years. I've tarried, I've delayed until now. I've spent a lot of years hanging around with Uncle Lavan. Vav, next pasuk, Vayihili shor v'chamor, and as of now, I'm a very wealthy man. I've got a lot of oxen, I've got a lot of donkeys, tzon, I've got a lot of flocks of sheep. The Eved v'shivcha, I got a lot of manservants and female servants. And I'm sending messages to my master, to Esav, to find favor in his eyes. And he goes on then to talk about the various gifts that he sent as well. Now, the obvious question that you see Chazal were bothered by, I think in previous years I've shared with you in the Medrash Rabbah, is that he's trying to get on Esav's good side now. He's trying to report to Esav that I'm coming back, I don't want to fight, I don't want to be having a hard time with you. Why is he sending him this message that I'm very wealthy now? I've got shor v'chamor, I've got all sorts of oxen, I've got all sorts of animals, I've got livestock, I've got servants, I've got maidservants. You'd think that might not be the wisest pieces of information to be sharing with Esav, because Esav hates Yaakov and he's jealous of Yaakov. He's upset that Yaakov took his blessings. You'd think that the last thing that Yaakov wants to share with the messengers to tell Esav is, hey, Esav, I'm returning. And by the way, I'm a very wealthy man now. So some of our commentators are bothered by that this does not seem so strategic. I think in previous years I shared that the Medrash Rabbah is bothered by this. And what the Medrash says is that he was sending this message with the hopes that would inspire Esav to do tshuva, which to repent and not kill Yaakov. And that just begs the question, that's the last thing you ought to be telling him. He's like flaunting his success to Esav. So one of the commentaries that we saw on the Medrash answered that by saying, what he was saying to Esav was, look, I'm very wealthy now, but you know full well that when I left Canaan, I was running. I didn't have time to pack my bags, and I was broke. And now I'm a very wealthy man. There's no way to explain my success other than saying God's looking out for me. So Esav, do you really want to go to war against me? You might want to rethink your plan. You're dealing with someone that God's clearly looking after. That's the way the Medrash wants to deal with this. What I want to share with you this morning, though, is I saw this year that Rav Levi Ben Gershon, he's one of our Rishonim, he has a very interesting way to understand this message that Yaakov was sending to Esav. Again, what we've quoted Ralbag before, what's very interesting about Ralbag is that Ralbag aside from offering a running commentary to Tanakh, he has what he calls his toelios, his practical takeaway lessons. Every couple chapters, he will tell you here in this episode that we just read, in this parak, in this chapter, in the last couple chapters, we'll say, here are the practical takeaway lessons, what we can learn from this. So that's always interesting about Rabbi. And I want to share with you his first lesson that he has here on Parshas Vayishlach. So we'll see it inside. Rabbi says, the first lesson that the Torah wants to teach us in Parshas Vayishlach has to do with proper conduct. It's appropriate that if a person has an enemy, someone who doesn't think so highly of us, and I want to chase away whatever feelings of hatred that person has towards me. I want to bring that person around. I want to hopefully turn this fellow into an ally, into a friend. What do I do? If I want to take an enemy, take someone who was an enemy, here's a handout here. If I want to take someone who was an enemy and turn that enemy into an ally or into a friend, how do I do it? I draw them close. What was that expression? You keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So Rabbi is saying is that what do you do if you have someone who's a cellmate, someone who's an enemy, and I want to turn that enemy into an ally, into a friend? I befriend that person. It's kind of in my hands. I could change that person's feelings towards me by befriending that person. Kill him with kindness. By drawing close, I'm engaging in bringing hearts together. And this is something which no other efforts could replicate this. In other words, if I want to draw this person close, I start the process by befriending that person. I might sit on the sidelines. My natural reaction would be like, I'm going to befriend this person. Wait till that person is acting like a mensch, and then I'll befriend that person. And Rabbi is saying what we learned from Yaakov's conduct with Esav is no, start the process, befriend that person before they're a good person, while they still hate me. And by befriending that person, I could bring that other person around. V'zeki adam lo yodia prate inyanav. And why does this work? What's the psychology at work? A person does not share their personal information ki'im la'ohavo, unless it's with someone who I love, someone who I've got fond feelings towards. V'yalima me'asonei. I would keep these hidden from someone I hate. I only share personal feelings. I only share my secrets. I only share personal information with somebody that I care about. So when I start sharing friendship with this person, and I send the message out that, hey, I'm making efforts, I'm extending myself to act towards you like a friend, and with someone who is really seeking kinship, that will shatter the other person's heart. It's almost, he's saying, it's almost inevitable. It's a tried and proven trick, is that if I'm trying to win friends and influence people, then the way to do that is a very famous book. So he's saying, what's the best technique? The best technique is act like a friend towards that person, and they almost won't be able to resist. Once the other party sees me, now again, it might take a while. That person might be a tough cookie. I might really have to pull out a lot of effort and tries, but he's saying the best way to win friends and influence people is by acting like a friend towards them. And once I start acting, it's almost reciprocal. It's almost inevitable that I'm going to win that other person. Now, where do I see this at the beginning of Parshas Vayishlach? Ulezet Timsa, and that's why you will find at the beginning of the Parsha, Sheshalach Yaakov Malachim LeEsav, that Yaakov sent these messengers to Esav, Lahodia lo, to tell Esav, to inform him in Yanav, what's going on in my life. These are all these personal details. Yaakov isn't taking out ads in the paper. He's not posting this on his social media, letting the people who don't know him know about the success he's experienced in Haran, how he's gotten married, he's had all these wives, all these children, all these riches, and now he's a very wealthy man. He's not sharing this with the world. He sent to the messengers, tell this to Esav, because this is very personal information. Once you start sharing with Esav, once you start sharing kinship and friendship and personal information, it's inevitable this is going to open up Esav's heart, and that hatred is going to slip away, and now feelings of friendship and fondness are going to foster here. He wants to get Esav thinking understanding that Yaakov loves him. Yaakov cares about him. He's got brotherly feelings towards him. And once that becomes clear to Esav, it's inevitably going to chase away some of that hatred, and hopefully will open up his heart to start feeling even fonder about him. You think about this when you talk to couples who are dating, and if you've ever been involved, I know Layla's had this a lot of times, you're acting as a little coach sometimes to these couples who are dating, and you're trying to say, okay, well, what can I do to make this relationship grow? Well, and you start saying, okay, well, you started coaching the boy, trying to coach the girl, the young man, the young woman, whoever it is you're coaching. One of the best things that's out there is saying, well, are you having conversations? Are you sharing personal feelings, what your hopes, your aspirations? Are you talking about your background? The more a person shares and the more a person's willing to give over some of their personal information, that's how relationships get boosted to the next level, because it's almost inevitable that once a person starts sharing and in a certain sense making yourself vulnerable, sharing personal information, that's how people pick up on cues, and relationships blossom and can grow. And in a sense, that's what Rabbi is saying. That's what Yaakov was doing at the beginning of the Parsha. He's telling his messengers, give over all this personal information. Why? Esav doesn't love you. Why are you sharing this? Because I want to make him into my friend. And how do I make someone into my friend? By taking that first step, by extending myself and showing that I'm considering the person close enough that I'm sharing this personal information with. It's almost inevitable that reciprocity is going to kick in.
How do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know that Yaakov didn't send this message to intimidate himself?
Oh, so there's various interpretations, right? 100%. Yeah.
There's the whole aspect of who is a rodeh, and what is my obligation when I see a rodeh. Now, Esav isn't coming at him with knives and spears and.
Well, he was coming with an army. He had an army of 400 men. He's coming to.
So you might think, needs to be a rodeh. I need to kill him.
Correct, and that's one of the Yaakov prepared for all eventualities. Okay. We see that he prepared for war. He prepared for this confrontation using tefillah, and he also prepared for this confrontation using all sorts of psychological techniques.
Strategic.
Correct, but also giving him gifts, doing all. He was hoping all these gifts and flattery and talking to him in nice ways, all this would work. If it doesn't, I'm also using prayer as a way to hopefully make this work. And if it doesn't, he was splitting up his groups and he was preparing for war also.
Or he was saying, hey, I'm doing okay. So I don't want anything from you.
Well, at this point, Esav wasn't offering him anything. He's coming into a situation, entering into Canaan, where he anticipates Esav wants to kill him. And everything he's trying to do right now is trying to stave off that threat. So the question is, how is he staving off the threat? By flaunting his wealth. So there are various interpretations. And we started by saying the Medrash was saying that this was a hope, that this would cause Esav to realize God's on his side. So you better rethink how you're dealing with Yaakov. Other interpretations might say, I'm a very wealthy and powerful man. This might intimidate Esav. There are other interpretations that that's what Rabbi was suggesting. But what we were seeing this Rabbi is suggesting is that he was using a psychological trick by sharing all this information. It wasn't that he was flaunting his checkbook and his bank assets with him, but he was saying, I'm giving you over the story of what's happened to me over the last 20 years. And I came there broke. I hunkered down with Uncle Lavan. I got married. I've got this large family now, and I've become very wealthy. He's trying to basically let him in on what my life has been like for the last 20 years, hoping that sharing all that personal information will build a relationship and will be able to change over. So take someone who hates him, Esav who hates him, and now turn him into a friend, into an ally. He was using, according to Rabbi, he was using some psychological tricks here. But what we could get out of this Rabbi is best ways to boost our relationships. We all have people in our world that we wish would be on better terms with us. And what this is saying is, if I want that person to be on better terms with us, it might help by me taking the first step. The more I extend myself, my natural reaction is I'm extending myself to friends. I'm not extending myself to someone who treats me like this. But what this Rabbi is telling us, I have the capability, I oftentimes have the ability, by befriending someone who doesn't deserve my friendship, I can turn that, I could chase away that hatred, and I could change that person's, the way they feel about me. I could change that person's perspective. So I think this is a great reminder for all of us, because we all have relationships in our life that we wish could be better, that we wish this person would treat and act towards me different. And again, I think our gut reaction is, I'm not doing a thing for that person until they change their tune. What Rabbi is telling us is I might have the ability to help that person change their tune. By me acting with friendship towards them, I could trigger this reciprocity, this natural reaction inside people, and I might affect change in that other person. I think this is just a great reminder for all of us, because I think as humans, our natural reaction is I only want to extend myself and be nice to people who are nice to me, and be friendly to people who are friendly to me. And here's this telling us I have a way to turn someone into a friend. Again, it might take a while, it might not always be successful, but just the way we're hardwired as people, this might help. It's something that we might want to think about in those relationships in our lives that need some repair. All right, that's
But it
point.
also
Yeah.
teaches you that Esav, at the end of the day, someone who wants to kill you is not really looking for your friendship.
Well, how do you know that? Esav didn't kill him. Esav
Right.
didn't attack him. Oh, we don't know what it was that turned Esav around. Was it Yaakov's prayers? Was it all of his gifts he sent him? Was it his sweet
Just
talking?
the bottom line.
Something worked.
Yaakov,
But here he didn't attack. He didn't attack. Something worked. We know Esav wanted to kill him. For 20 years, he's been plotting his demise. But now, and Yaakov's terrified. He's turning to God saying, Hiarei Anochi, I'm very scared. That was in his tefillah. I'm very nervous about coming back, what Esav's going to do. Yet something worked. We don't know what it was. Was it all the gifts? Was it all the sweet talking? Was it the friendship? Was it the tefillah? We don't know. Something worked, and he took a multi-pronged approach. That's what we get
You
here.
also say that Yaakov really didn't, like, he only wanted to go so far because he tells Esau to go.
Correct.
Getting ahead.
I'm not going to hang out with you.
Yeah.
You want me
I mean,
to stick with you?
just
No,
don't
you
wanna
get
hit
there.
him.
I'll
Because
catch up
he's
at some point.
telling me,
Right.
now that
He
you
was
want
avoiding
to
it.
go,
Correct.
you go your
He
way.
didn't say, now let's go hang out together. Now let's pitch tents side by side. He says, woo, I dodged this bullet, but
So
I'm not taking my luck. I'm not taking my chances another time.
Basically, the lesson is to diffuse the initial, like, attack scenario, but just diffuse
Right.
that, but not necessarily.
Don't have these hopes and aspirations that we're going to be like this for now on.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Yaakov's. What he was pulling out every angle to diffuse the situation. But as soon as that was done, you're right. He split. He said, he pulled a fast one on him. He says, "Yeah, you go on, and I'll catch up with you." That's what Yaakov basically told him. And
Did he have to go in that path? He had to go.
it sounds like there was only one way to get back
Going
with all of
there,
his
he had to
stuff.
go through that.
Well, remember, but now he's not just by himself in his walking stick. When you're by yourself in your walking stick, you can take any number of routes. It seems like now, he's got all of his wagons and kids. He's got all his baggage. He's got all these flocks, all these animals. It sounds like there's only one way to get back.
It also sounds that Asa purposefully is tracking him
to catch him.
to meet him for some reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And Yaakov knows that. So that's why this is happening. Yeah. So again, from this Rabbi, you see what he's suggesting is he's telling us this is something that we ought to think about human nature. It's an insight into human nature. And I think we've all seen this. There are times that we could think about, I almost wish like I didn't like that person, but they're acting so nice to me. And like, how could I not respond? I almost wish I I wish I didn't like it, right? We have a friend that we joke about that when he got married, like Layla was joking that we were saying she was like this reincarnation of Barbie, and she was saying like, I almost wish I didn't like her, but she's just so nice. How can I not like her? I remember that was funny. She's very sweet, but I remember it was almost like I'm trying not to like her, but I can't. That's funny. I forgot about that.
Really, really nice.
I forgot about that.
Can't get over it.
I forgot about
But
that.
he had this woman in his mind, and he really got it with the Barbie mobile and everything.
Right, he bought her a car. We were joking. He bought her a Barbie mobile. It was like this pink car and everything. I forgot about that. I totally forgot about that. Okay. All right, let's move on. Let's go. So I want to share with you some beautiful pieces I saw in Rav Sorotskin this week. So Naim Torah. So let's see. This resonated with me, this next one. This is beautiful. So in the next parak, in chapter 33, so there's a very, very unfortunate, we all are familiar, there's something so tragic. Every year when Parshas Vayishlach comes around, this is when Dinah is abducted by Shechem and she's violated by him. Awful, absolutely awful. And every year I'm thinking about this, and then this year especially, it just resonated with me. She's basically abducted, taken captive, and violated, and they go into war against Shechem, knocking off an incredible, disproportionate amount of people to get their sister back. And it's just, I'm looking at this, the last number of weeks, you keep seeing so many signs in the Parshios that tying into current events. I was like, when I was looking over the Parsha this week, I was like, oh my God. But anyhow, we're not going to focus on that. What we're going to focus on, though, is that Yaakov, the Torah makes a point of telling us that Yaakov purchased land in Shechem. He purchased land, and Sorotzkin doesn't get lost on him. Let's see this. So Pasuk Perak Lamed Gimel, that's chapter 33. Start with, we're going to see 3 psukim: Yud Ches, Yud Tes, and Chaf. So Yud Ches, Vayavo Yaakov Sholem Ir Shechem. So after this confrontation with Esav, Yaakov and his family, they arrive in Shechem. So they still have not reunited with Yitzchak and Rivka. And we'll soon see. I always wondered that. Why didn't he just go back? He was supposed to go back. Why did he go to Shechem first? We're going to soon see in the next piece, not this one, but in the next piece, Rav Sart's going to have a great insight on that I always wondered, and I never saw anything. So again, but he did not go to Yitzchak and Rivka yet. In fact, it's sad. He never gets reunited with his mother, Rivka. Rivka dies before he gets back, which is, it's heartbreaking. He spent 20 years away. He's coming back.
That's heartbreaking.
I know.
Doesn't.
But that's his beloved mom. She sent him away.
Yeah.
I know. It's so sad. Yeah. All right. Let's see. So before going back to Hebron to see his parents, he first goes to Shechem. Asher Beretz Canaan, which is in Canaan, Bavomi Padan Aram. It's on the route if you're coming from Padan Aram, which was where he was coming from. Vayichan al Espanei Ir. So he encamped before the city. Yutes 19. Vayiken es Chelkas Hasadeh. He says, I'm buying land here. So he buys land in a field, a part of a field, Asher Nata Sham, where he pitched all his tents. Alo Miyad B'nei Chamor Avi Shechem. He purchased, he has a deed. He purchased the land from the kids of Chamor, who is the father of the sons of Chamor, the father of Shechem, the Mea Ksita, and he paid 100 Ksita. So commentaries say it was a very expensive coin, like a universal coin. It was accepted not just in that one locale, but in the whole region. One more verse. He set up a mizbeach there. And using this mizbeach, he would call out to Hashem and try to teach people about the ways of God. So we'll come back to the question soon about why didn't he go straight to Hebron? Why did he stop in Shechem? We'll get there soon. That's not this initial piece. We'll get that in the next piece. What is it?
I understand it. At the Mizbeach, he started teaching people.
Yeah, he set up a Mizbeach. Now, literally, it says he named the Mizbeach, God is the God of Israel.
Right.
But the commentaries say that's not what that means. What it means is he used this as a base, like a base of operations. They were always about teaching the world about monotheism, the Avos. So he used this Mizbeach as a place, he set up a yeshiva, basically, as a base medrash there, where he was teaching his family, his kids, and anyone who wanted to learn about that. Okay. Let's see this Sorotzkin. This is so relevant and this is so interesting. He bought land. He made a point when he came to Shechem. I'm sorry, let me go to the next page. I didn't do that yet. He came, we're on page 2. So he buys land over there. Kfar Shava Nefesh Yaakov L'Menuchusa is that at this point, this is after the confrontation with Esav, Yaakov is now relieved. He can finally breathe a sigh of relief. And he doesn't send any more gifts. That was at the beginning of the Parsha. Once he got Esav off his tail, Esav went to his place. Yaakov can now breathe relief. He doesn't have to send more gifts. And he doesn't search for answers. And he's in other words, Esav said he was going to Seir. Yaakov said, yeah, you go, I'll catch up with you. He's done now. He's done sending gifts. He's done coming up with answers about why I'm not there so fast. He's ignoring Esav now. That's why he didn't start building permanent stuff there. He doesn't want, he had just told Esav that I'll meet you there. So Esav, he's probably thinking there's still agents who are around here looking, for information about Yaakov. If they see he starts building a whole housing unit and development and an estate and permanent housing, word's going to get back to Esav that he's not coming anymore. But he doesn't want Esav to get all nervous. So that's why it specifically says he pitched tents, because if people see tents are a temporary structure. That's what people do who are temporary dwellers. They use tents. His goal was he wanted to work his way back. He was now in Shechem. From there he wants to go to Beis El, and from there he wants to go to Hebron. Okay, so the question is, why did he make a point of buying land in Shechem? If this was all temporary, that he just wants to hang out there for a little bit, set up his mizbeach, then go to Beis El, and then go to Hebron to be reunited with his parents, why did he buy land? Why didn't he just rent? He's setting up tents. He's not building anything permanent. Nobody would have complained if he would have just brought his entourage for a short amount of time to set up and live in tents. So how does the Evan Ezra address this? Why did Yaakov specifically buy land? Now that he was in Israel, he says, wow, I'm back in Israel. I want to be a landowner. So that's the way that Evan Ezra deals with this, is that the first opportunity, an investment, but it's like I'm buying land in Israel is like buying a piece of Olam Haba. So Yaakov, now that he's in Israel, the first land where he takes a break is in Shechem. He's just so overcome with emotion, he needs to buy something. Okay, well, if he Divrei Chazal, so that's the way that Evan Ezra deals with this, because I want to share with you what the Gemara says in Baba Basra. You could say as follows: Shekana Yaakov es chelkas hasodeh b'Shechem. Why did he specifically buy land in Shechem? He was able to see through divine inspiration. Yosef beno. That's where Yosef was. Yosef is buried in Shechem. Right. And he says, I can't have it that tzaddik is going to be buried in land that he doesn't own a deed to. There's something about where a tzaddik is going to be buried that even though that land will be given to the shevet of either Menashe or Ephraim, will have that land. I want to have it that even before it was split up, that there's a deed that they specifically own it. And there's something special about being in land that was purchased for them that he owns. I want to make sure there's no argument about this, that this land is owned by Yosef. The Chazal Darshu and Chazal tell us, there are 3 places in Israel in Tanakh. The nations of the world could never accuse us of being thieves because Tanakh says we bought them. There are 3 places where the nations are, if we would only have the confidence to hold up a Tanakh and say, it says here that we bought it, there are 3 places where there should be no argument. What are those 3 places? Mars Machpelah in Hebron, in Parshas Vayishlach clearly says that Avram bought that. Ubeis HaMikdash, and we've got the Beis HaMikdash because in Nach, it's in Malachim, it clearly tells us that David HaMelech bought, is it Malachim or Sefer Shmuel? I gotta look if it's Malach. I think it's I gotta take a look if it might be Sefer Shmuel, where David HaMelech goes to war when he was entering in from the Yevusim.
Shmuel was with Shaul, he's after Shaul.
Yeah, but David. Correct, but Malach, I just don't remember if this is the beginning of Malachim or not. I would have to double check that. I'm sorry, I meant to look at this. Okay, but it clearly tells us that David bought the from the local natives, from the Yevusim. He bought from Arnava, or is it Aranva Hayavusi was the Aranva or Arnava. I don't remember how to pronounce his name, but it was a Yevusi who was living there. He bought the land. And then it says, what's the 3rd place that it says we clearly bought from the locals? Kfuraso Shel Yosef. So there are 3 spots in Israel that if we had the confidence to hold up a Tanakh and say, stop it. It clearly says in here, Bnei Yisrael bought this, and you cannot say, okay, we stole this, that we displaced some natives. You can't say anything. There's no indigenous people who have rights to it. These it clearly says in Tanakh were bought. They paid top dollar by Hebron when it bought the Mars Machpelah, 400 shekel kesef overla socher. They paid top dollar for that. Here, when it says that he bought the land in Shechem, it said he paid. The pasuk says, I just want to see the expression. The mea kisita. He used 100 coins of the most expensive coins. He paid top dollar for this. And by the Beis HaMikdash, the spot of Beis HaMikdash, when David bought it from Arnava, the Yevusite. So also he paid top dollar. The Nifla Dover, the manner is absolutely astonishing. Shadavka Gimel Makomas Kedoshim Elu. It's specifically these holy spots. Shein Lumos Olam Aleim Shum Taina. Those are the ones that the nations of the world should not have any argument against us, because it clearly says we bought. Those three are the most contested spot. And he's writing this, Reb Soretskin, he survived the Holocaust. I don't know if he wrote this before he left Europe or after. So if he wrote it, I'm assuming he put this together after he was in Israel already. So he says, here he's living in Israel. Those three spots, the Makom HaMikdash, there's no place that's more contentious than the Makom HaMikdash. Hebron, how much Jewish blood has been spilled in Hebron? Shechem, I think every couple of months they go nuts in Shechem, and destroy that historic monument, the Kever of Yosef. But every couple of months they flare up, they go nuts over there. And it's one of the most dangerous areas there too. So it's like these are three places. They're specifically where there's a claim. He says, well, that's why they're the most, because they know that these are the places where Bnei Israel has the strongest claim. Those are the places where the greatest fights are going on. He's saying, he goes, it's amazing. Nifla Hadavar, it's astonishing if you think about it. He says these are the places where they are the most contentious places in Israel. Shadafka Gimel Makomas Kedoshim Eila, Shein Lumos Olam Aleim Shum Taina, where they really shouldn't have any complaint whatsoever. Them saying Kol Yimei Galusenu Arucha, throughout our long and bitter exile. And now he says, look in the parentheses, this tells you when he wrote it. Even now, Bimei Haschalas Kibbutz Golios. Even now, when the Medina has been established, and now we're starting to see a regathering of the exiles. Now these three spots are the most contested places. Bidei Umos Olam Sorei Yisrael Shekamat Shein Menichel Lebnei Yisrael Lageshes Alem Lisbal Sham. They don't want us near these spots. They won't let us. Before the 67 war, we wouldn't let Jews into the Maras and Machpelah. There was a whole thing. There was a stairway outside, and up to a certain step, I think it was the seventh step. It was something like this. That was where they would allow Jews to go, and that kind of became like the Kosel HaMaravi of Hebron. There were Muslim guards there. If you got caught above there, they'd either beat you to a pulp or they would kill you if you went beyond that seventh step. So this was a place that, again, there should be nothing whatsoever, but these are the most contested. And Shechem, we said every couple of months they go nuts over there. And Harabayas don't even. This has been a constant canard, a constant lie that every time they want to inspire the masses to go nuts, they just think about the Jews are trying to destroy the mosque, and then they go crazy. This is what happens all the time. So he says, these three places, they won't let us get near to daven anywhere near there. By the fact that they're fighting so hard about these three spots, this is a sign that God is with us in our long and bitter exile, because that's what they're so scared of. They're so scared that if we would only have access to these spots, the spiritual power that we could harness, it's like he's saying this is astonishing. Hashem yishlach lanu goal tzedek b'mhira b'yameinu amen. He says God should send a redeemer that we shouldn't suffer from this anymore. And he says, by the way, he goes, once we're on this topic now about why was it so important to Yaakov to buy land for where Yosef was going to be buried, he has a beautiful twist here. He says, once we're on this topic that Yaakov wanted to buy the land where Yosef was going to be buried, Hikshu Makom Kvuraso, Shechazal Hikshu Makom Kvuraso Shel Yosef. Chazal said they made a link. They said it's very comparable. There's a lot of linkage between the place where Yosef is buried in Shechem, L'Makom HaMikdash, U'Lamaris HaMachpelah. There's something about this that they're three. It's not just that these are three places that Bnei Israel bought, and it's recorded in Tanakh that they paid money for to buy from the natives, but there's something equally sacred, and almost like those places have. I know there's a lot written about Hebron. There's a lot written about Hebron, the connection between Hebron and Yerushalayim, but also between Shechem. My brother-in-law Yehuda once spent a lot of time on this, researching different chazals about the spiritual power that was in Shechem. And you got to remember, Shechem is around the area where the 10 renegade tribes, the northern kingdom, where they set up shop too. There was something about Shechem, and that was cooking there as well. So he says you see that they equate that there's some almost like a portal to heaven in these three spots: the place where Yosef is buried, Maras HaMachpelah, and the Makom HaMikdash. So he says, Uve, that abbreviation is called Hadeya v'Hadibur. The same Rav Sorotzkin, he wrote a couple volume set of his drashos from back in Europe when he was a Rav in Europe, and it was called Hadeya v'Hadibur. So he says Hadeya v'Hadibur. He goes, I went on at length about this, but I'll just give you a quick synopsis about one item I said. He says Hadeya v'Hadibur Chelok Aleph Drasha Vav Biarti Drashas Chazal. I explained this at great length. Sha'arona shel Yosef, the casket of Yosef. Remember when they left Egypt, they brought the casket of Yosef with them, the sarcophagus where his bones were in. Halach mem shana b'midbar. They accompanied them for 40 years in the wilderness. Yachad, together with Imaron Bris, with the Ark of the Covenant, with the Aron that had the luchos in it. So there were two caskets that were accompanying the Jews all those years in the wilderness. The casket with Yosef's bones and the Aron, the Ark that had the luchos in it. And they give an explanation. Chazal say, it was the juxtaposition. In this Aron, in this casket, is the remains of Yosef. He fulfilled, the person in here, the remains in here fulfilled what's in this one, meaning this is an embodiment. This one lived heart, mind, and soul. Everything fully embodied the Torah that we have that's in the Aron. That's the juxtaposition, why they carried these two Aronos. He says, this one fulfilled, what's written in this one. Uviarti, I explained over there, the casket with the remains of a tzaddik has the same sanctity as the Aron, the ark that has the Torah. What is the Torah? The Torah is God's will, what He wants us to do with our lives. Vatzadik, who Ratzon Hashem, and what is the tzaddik? Tzaddik is someone who lives their life by that teaching, by those instructions. They embodied everything what was God's will. Torah shenis gashma alidei ma'aseh tzaddik. What is the Torah? The Torah, so to say, comes to life. It's given a body through the actions of a tzaddik. The Torah is God's will, but a tzaddik personifies that, brings that to reality. The Yosef hefli lasos. Yosef, in the most astonishing fashion, fulfilled the Torah l'kaimas Torah b'chol minei matzavim. He fulfilled the Torah in every circumstance he found himself in. Number one, keben chorin, when he was a free man before he was sold. Bebeis aviv, the first 17 years of his life, he sat and he studied with his father every moment he could. Ke'eved, when he was a slave, bebeis Potifar, when he was a slave in the house of Potifar, he resisted temptation. And he fulfilled incredible challenges, and he fulfilled the Torah. Ka'asir, when he was locked up in prison, Bebeis Asurim in jail, then he also fulfilled the Torah. Ukemishna Lamelech, and then when he became liberated and he became viceroy, Ba'armono shel Paro, when he was in the palace of Paro and he could have indulged in every hedonistic pleasure that's out there, still he says he was going to remain firm to the Torah's principles. So Yosef HaTzadik became a representation. He really became the epitome in the eyes of the Jew of a living Sefer Torah. So it's not astonishing. Yaakov felt the same way we're preparing a spot. There's going to be a place for the Aron that's going to have the luchos, where that's going to be set up. I have to prepare a spot in Eretz Yisrael for the remains of Yosef, because he's a living Sefer Torah. If those two Aronos are shakul, they're of equal value. The same way we're preparing, there's going to be a Makom HaMikdash for the Aron of the bris, of the luchos. There's got to be a special place for the Aron of Yosef as well. Shein olav arurim le'atzmosav hakdoshim, because we want to make certain that there would be nobody who would complain. There wouldn't be any question about where these holy remains were going to be buried. Now, I have to say myself, whenever I see something in the news, every couple of years, I shouldn't say every couple, it might be every year, there's usually something in the news about a contingent of Jews who did not get authority from the police or from Tzahal and wanders into Shechem because they really want to daven at the kever of Yosef, and then they end up trapped, and then they have to send in soldiers to get them out of there. And I said, these people are off the rockers. You know, you're going into such a makom sakana, such a dangerous place. There are times, I don't know if it's every year, but there are times where Tzahal will arrange for a protected visit. It's every year. And I think they arrange it around his yortzeit, what the tradition is around his yortzeit.
I think that, or yeah.
So, but every year also, there's people who just, I don't know what they're thinking. They just go in there on their own. They're saying, I don't need protection. And then they end up, there's usually some riot that takes place in Shechem. Sometimes the Palestinian Authority protects them until Tzahal gets there. And other times they're called, I think just the other year, there was one, they were hiding in the bushes and waiting for Tzahal giving, texting their location. And these had to risk their lives to get to rescue these guys from a mob. So I always look at this and I say, I kind of curse them out and say, like, you're so irresponsible. First of all, you put your own life in jeopardy. And then all these poor soldiers who had to come, save you. I always do this. But what I don't think about, and something like this makes me think about, well, what drew them there? Why are people so drawn to the resting place of Yosef? And this helps us give us some of an appreciation there. I'm not saying that excuses their behavior. It doesn't. You got to act responsible. You can't put themselves at risk, and they can't put those chayalim at risk who got to rescue them. But it just helps us understand this was a big deal, securing a spot for him. And why was it that Yaakov felt so responsible to secure this spot for him there? So I don't often think about Shechem and the relevance that it has, but this just reminds us there really was something about these three. There's like this trifecta. You want to call it? There's something about these three triumvirate. There's something about these three places, about Shechem, Hebron, and the Makom Hamikdash, that really have a special place. A terrible connotation.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope it'll change.
Timeline on that. How many years after Dino did he?
Well, then after Dina,
Before.
well, Dina is in this week's parsha.
Doesn't he buy before, like,
He bought the
But
land
when he
right
did that,
before the incident with Dina. Correct. He bought property in Shechem right immediately following that is where Dina was
I
abducted.
have the connotation because that's what happened.
Why Shechem?
Yeah.
Yeah, Shechem is always referred to as a place that's makom muchan laparanios. It's a place where all sorts of bad stuff happened to Bnei Israel. That's also where Yosef was sold. Yosef was sold. By the way, think about that. Think about this too. Yosef's being reunited with the place where he was sold. He went to look for his brothers who were shepherding the stuff near Shechem. That's the next week's Parshas Vayishlach. So isn't that also interesting? That's where he ends up being buried, is the place where he was snatched from. That's the place that Yaakov bought land where he was going to be eventually buried. Another reason that it's
the whole reason why they were Yaakov bought, because he was there.
where he was
That's
there.
what
That was the
was
first stop that they made in Eretz
Yeah.
Yisrael. He wanted to, Evan Ezra said he wanted to own a piece of Israel. That was that. And also this, he wanted a spot, according to Rav Sorotzkin is suggesting, he specifically wanted a spot that was going for a burial. He stopped there to buy land because that was the spot that he thought was most appropriate for Yosef to be buried. So again, what did he have some inclination? There's something unique about that spot of Shechem.
Because why would you bring him closer to where his mother and father were buried?
Yeah, so there's definitely something about some spiritual
Yeah.
accessibility that's possible in Shechem, and that's why the 10 Shvatim, those 10 tribes that went off the deep end, where they set up their base of operations, was also around there. So there was something. My brother-in-law spent a lot of time on this. That it gets
So are we
ignored.
supposed to avoid it at all?
Shechem's a
So-
very dangerous place.
Well, I know, but I'm saying to not even when, Sahel could like bring you in.
No, if it's safe,
no,
and
they-
but I would do it
They
with
go
them.
to the yeshivas, go there.
Correct, but they specifically will coordinate that
Yeah.
with the PA and make sure that there's not going to be any trouble. But to go on your own, that's very
Yeah.
dangerous. I think. Yeah. All right, let's just see one last piece in this. We won't have time for the second piece here. Okay, well, let's just do it real quick. Okay, yeah, we'll speak it. Okay, let's do the second piece in Rav Sorotzkin on page 3. On page 3, the second piece here. Remember, I said I was always bothered by his parents are living in Hebron, and then he stops in Shechem. Why did he do that? Why did he stop in Shechem? Why didn't he just come right back and go to?
Buried him there.
Well, yeah, and then see that way he would have seen his mother before she died also.
Right, Yitzchak already died.
No, Yitzchak's going to die in this parsha, and
Oh,
Esav and Yaakov bury him.
Right.
But he never got to see Rivka again.
Okay.
So because he stopped in Shechem. Well, why didn't he just go right to Hebron? So just to speak outside, this first piece in Rav Sorotzkin on page 3 just speaks about, well, first of all, what's Yitzchak and Rivka doing in Hebron now?
Right.
At the end of Parshas Toldos, when they sent him away, he left Beersheba, right? Vayetze begins that he was Vayetze mi Beersheba, Vayelech Harana. So that means when he last saw his parents, they were living in Beersheba. Why are they now in Hebron? So he wants to posit the reason they're now in Hebron is because they realized as their lives were going on and they were getting older, they were getting close to their end. They know they're supposed to be buried in the Maras Machpelah, and there was something powerful about Hebron, and that's why they relocated to Hebron. That's why Yitzchak and Rivka are in Hebron. But now in the second paragraph, he wants to deal with, well, why did Yaakov not go directly to Hebron? Why did he stop in Shechem? So look in the second paragraph here. Let's see. Vayavo Yaakov el Yitzchak aviv mamrei Kiryas Arba hi Hebron. Kishiyatzu Yaakov mi beis aviv. When Yaakov, I'm sorry. 1 second. I want to do the first paragraph. I spoke out to you now the second paragraph. The
Right.
second paragraph says, when he left their house, they were in Beersheba. Why are they now in Hebron? So in that second paragraph, he says, why did his parents relocate to Hebron? The reason they relocated to Hebron was because they know that that's where they're supposed to be buried, and also going there would enable them to remember the teachings of Abraham and Sarah and the special face that would help them prepare for their final journey. In other words, to reconnect with everything. That's that second paragraph. So I'm sorry, I want to share with you the first paragraph. The first paragraph deals with, why did Yaakov tarry? Why did he stop in Shechem? Why didn't he go straight to Hebron? So he says, Kfar chasafnu le'el she'ichar Yaakov es biaso el aviv, is that Yaakov delayed his return to his parents, v'nenash b'ma'aser Ruven, and he was punished. That's where this incident with Ruven occurred, where Ruven started to rearrange the beds and whatnot. So that was a very embarrassing incident that happened there. So that was a punishment. But no, why did Yaakov delay? Why did he stay in Shechem? What was he thinking? He didn't want to have a second run-in with Esav. He already had one run-in with Esav, which was at the beginning of the Parsha, where he's crossing the border coming into Eretz Yisrael. But he didn't want to have a second run-in. Where was he nervous about having a second run-in? It seems that Esav had more than one house. He had his big palace in Seir, in the land of Edom, but it seems like he had a second place. He had a second house set up in Hebron. Even though his net was mostly, for the most part, his main kingdom, his main fiefdom was in Seir. That's where he ruled, and he set up his whole fiefdom over there. Nonetheless, he had, I don't know, call it his summer retreat, whatever it was. He had his other residence. He had his estate in Hebron as well. There's a medrash in Pirkei Rav Elazar that also says this, that Esav, he had a second home in Hebron. Sheyakov matza od bechevron as Esav. It says in the Pirkei Rav Elazar that he did actually bump into him again in Hebron, ba'oel Yitzchak, in the house of Yitzchak. So in other words, even at the end of this parsha, when Yitzchak dies, Esav is there. Esav shows up for the funeral. So it could be that he had a second residence. He had the second residence in Hebron. So in other words, his theory is, what we were speaking out at the beginning of today, is that Yaakov was able to make peace with Esav. He got him not to attack him this time. But that didn't mean he wanted to be chummy for the rest of their life. So just like he said, I'm not sticking with you when you're going to Seir, yeah, I'll catch up with you later. As he gets into Israel, he also finds out that Esav's got a second home in Hebron. So now he's thinking, I don't know if it's safe to return to Hebron so quick. Let me pitch my tent in Shechem for a little. Let me stay away until I could figure this out a little. That's why he sets up shop in Shechem, and it was a mistake. He shouldn't have stayed there. The bad stuff happened in Shechem, and then he eventually comes to Hebron. In other words, it sounds like he should have relied. Hashem told him, I'm answering you. I'm looking out. You're going to return safely to your parents. It seems like he was overly concerned here. But then, but this is Rav Soretskin's theory. Otherwise, why did he stop in Shechem? He was told to go back to Hebron. So what he's saying is he didn't want to have another run-in with Esav. He dodged the bullet once. He's thinking like, I don't want to have to face off with him another time. Seir, they say. Again, Seir, I've seen maps that try to figure this out. They say it's over the Yarden. They say it's in modern day Jordan. There is a theory that Edom, the kingdom of Edom, part of it is those red cliffs of Jordan that we refer to as Petra. So if you've been to Petra, you may have visited some of Esav's old stomping grounds.
I thought Petra would probably be kind of like where Menashe, Reuven, Menashe.
No, because that's further south. The,
Right.
the 2.5 tribes were further north over the Jordan. Petra is further south. They say that was the
Right across
from the
Eilat.
Dead Sea area, right?
Well, not really, you gotta go 2 hours up,
Okay,
you have to drive up 2 hours from Eilat,
okay. So that's further.
it's further north.
Gotcha.
So
So
that was never part of.
that was never
Eretz
part of
Yisrael.
Eretz Yisrael. No, but they say that was part of Edom over there, and they say that's part of the reason it was Edom was the reddish hue of some of the stuff there,
But
Yeah.
they've got that in Israel as well, the red cliffs. and
Yeah, the
they've
sandstone.
got Canyon Adom.
Hmm.
South in Israel.
I wasn't familiar.
When you think about the fact that Yaakov bought Shem